we go.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah.
Oh,
What's going on?
not much. Just hanging out at my house. I've been COVID positive these past couple weeks, and I'm doing my two tests now, and it looks like I'm testing negative.
Oh,
So
good. Good,
exciting
good, good.
day.
Right on. Well, it's great to meet you. And I guess that's the first way that I kind of wanted to start everything off was to see how you've done through this last 3 years of the COVID period. And obviously, just getting over it now. How are you doing? And how has it changed the way that you're looking and doing things and getting through everything that you do as a musician?
Yeah, well, when the pandemic happened, it was crazy. I mean, like it was so I was on tour with Postmodern Jukebox at the time, and I remember my last show because I ended up having to leave the tour early because I had another thing I had to do. My last show ended up being everybody's last show because that was when we decided to like stop like touring because of the pandemic. But and it was crazy. I was in China back in November of 2019 for a swing dancing event. And so I like made some friends over there. So it was funny because like I would see people like post about some sort of like sickness, like back in like December and January, being like, oh, that's crazy. And then just slowly watching it go over the whole world was kind
Yeah.
of nuts. But no, I mean, in the period of a week, I lost all of my work. Like I was at first, my first show to get canceled was I was going to do my first show at South by Southwest for my original music. And that was the first one to go. And then that after that, everything got canceled. My last show in the city was Friday the 13th in March. and,
Wow.
and I remember we were at this place called the Secret Room, like in Times Square, and nobody knew how it was being spread at the time. So I remember going to work with like a black dress and latex gloves under a pair of like fancy gloves and being like, oh, this will keep me safe. I've got it. Like it's just no, it seems like a world away, but no, then the whole world shut down. And I mean, I personally, I'm not somebody that likes to sit still really. So it was a conundrum for me.
Yeah.
But after a few, like after a little while to just kind of realize like, oh, this is actually happening. Like I started to really be more proactive because I realized then the only way that you could really continue to support yourself, because I also didn't get my unemployment for like 8 9 months. Like
Wow.
it took them a long time to file my claim, so I was like just panicking. And I've always played ukulele and guitar growing up. I've played ever since I was a kid, but it was more so for just songwriting or for playing around. Like I had never really used it in a professional situation. So I was like, oh shit, if I if I want to be able to play shows for people, I have to play shows. Like I can't just sing alone in my room. So I kind of focused all of my crazy energy into really getting better at ukulele and guitar, and was able to play shows from my house. And I did a couple of events with like local jazz clubs in the city where everybody would hop on a Zoom and do stuff. There were swing dancing classes online. It was a very crazy time. But then all, and not to ramble on too much about it. Like I said, there's so much that happened in that period, but I recorded 2 albums actually in
Yeah.
in that period of time. I did or 2 EPs. The first one was done pretty much in the beginning of the pandemic, where I had original music that I wanted to put out there, and I was able to have my friends, like we all recorded from our separate homes and mixed it, and I made all the artwork at home and put that out. It was called Songs from Quarantine. And then later on, after the vaccine had come out, then I did a a spooky jazz album. It was because, in my opinion, I think that there's a specific bunch of songs in the jazz repertoire that are perfectly suited for like any sort of Halloween situation. And
Yeah.
Halloween's my favorite holiday, so I wanted to do something. And so I was able to get a studio and had everybody in different sections, so we weren't overcrowding the room and everyone was masked, and we were able to do it and put it out. So there were lots of creativity had to come out of it. There's a lot of busking in the park, anything under the sun that you could imagine. Like,
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Well, how does it feel to have the brand new album out? Everyone Loves a Lover. What that has to feel good now to, with things kind of opening up and, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm excited. It comes out in 2 days on the 8th, and I'm thrilled about it because we recorded it last October.
yeah,
So I've been like just feel like I've been sitting on a gold mine being like, I've been telling my friends about it, but you need to listen to it.
yeah,
But it's a huge deal. I mean, I've been making music in some capacity or another, like professionally, since I was 16, and I've actually in that period of time I've never released a full length album. So I'm 26 now, so that's 10 years. It's crazy to think about, like I'm having a little musician midlife moment. But
right.
so it's amazing that it's finally happening, and it's music that I am so proud of, that sounds so good, and the musicians sound phenomenal. Like I feel like in the past, I think every everyone's their own worst critic, so there's always little things that you'll hear when you listen back to a recording and go, oh, maybe I could have done that differently, or oh, maybe I would like to do blah blah blah, but then you just resign yourself to saying, well, it's a snapshot of where I was in my life at that
Yes.
moment. But I haven't had that with this record yet. Like it's really, I just am very proud of it. It's awesome. I'm very happy.
What are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
I guess is enjoyment too too basic of an, like, I mean, for me, I just want them to enjoy it, to like listen to some beautiful songs that I think most people haven't heard before. There are some tunes on there like Autumn Leaves, or Sin to Tell a Lie, that I think are more, that people are more familiar with. But I know for me, some of the tunes like This Will Make You Laugh, or what's it called? What Can I Say After I Say I'm Sorry? I found those tunes like during the pandemic, and I had no idea they existed, and then was shocked by how beautiful they were. So I think getting to like share some tunes that people haven't really heard is always a nice thing. But at the end of the day, like for me, there's and this seems like a very obvious answer, but my favorite kind of music is just music that makes me feel good, that makes me enjoy what I'm listening to, that doesn't make me feel anxious. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a point in time for all sorts of kind of music that make you feel any kind of way, but I know for this record I just wanted it to be something that people could put on and just enjoy, and not have to be like, oh, this one song is it's too intense for this moment, or oh, this one's too like moody, blah blah blah. I don't know, just rambling. Can you tell I'm excited?
No, you're good. No, 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 you're good. It's like improv. It's getting it out there. So I'm curious, how did this jazz journey begin for you? How did you get involved with not only singing and music, but with jazz?
Yeah, so well, so singing and music is one story, and then jazz is another story. Would you like both?
Sure. We'll combine it.
Okay. So, well, so the way that I got my start in the scene, and in this like path that I'm on, is basically back in middle school. I transferred middle schools because I was getting really badly bullied and needed to like leave that space. And when I went to this new school, they had a talent show. And so I decided, screw it, I'm going to do this talent show. I ended up winning the talent show. And my dad was a very proud dad and wanted to show it to everybody on the board at the YMCA. And one of the guys on the board was like, hey, my son has a recording studio up in New York City, like for her birthday, like for her 16th birthday. Would you like to bring her up so she kind of knows what it feels like to be in a studio and get to like record songs, just like cover songs for fun, And so we waited until my 16th birthday, and I came up and saw Ben Howard concert in Central Park. Michael Kiwanuka opened, and then went to the studio that was run by Brad Hammonds, my old musical partner, and recorded 2 cover songs. And then after that, he asked me to come back up to the city and record some music, for like some of his own music. So then at that point, I started kind of traveling my junior year of high school back and forth, maybe once a month to come up to New York and play a show at Rockwood Music Hall at like 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, like, and my dad was always really cool about letting me come up as long as I didn't miss any schoolwork. So basically my last 2 years of high school, um, I was coming up to the city. And in this period of time, I also started writing my own original music and performing it. And when it came time to graduate, my musical partner basically was like, well, if I create a record label and you agree to like, and you defer a year from college and promise to only focus on really trying to make this work, like the record label will support you for a year, like, and pay your rent. So it was a crazy situation. I'm very glad my parents went along with it. But so I moved to New York in 2015, and in that first year, there wasn't a lot of stuff I could do at 18, right? Like I can't really go to bars. Like I didn't have a fake ID, like I wasn't cool. But one thing that I started dating this guy and he was a swing dancer. And so he took me to a swing dance night called the Frim Fram Jam at You Should Be Dancing, where it starts off as a lesson and then it turns into like open dance with a live band.
Yeah.
And I went and loved it, like had a blast. And even though we didn't last for very long after we broke up, I was like, screw this, I'm going back to swing dancing. So I would go out swing dancing like 3 or 4 times a week because it was like something I could do. It was good exercise. I was able to make so many friends and kind of tap into this new community. And through that, I started to meet the musicians that were playing at these events. And before I moved to New York, like kind of just growing up in Maryland, like I thought the only way that you could make money with music was to be a music teacher. Like I was convinced that was the only way. Like I had never seen it done in my life. So how would I know? And so it was really cool to start to talk to these folks and realize like, oh, this is your job. Like you play these gigs all the time and you can support yourself on it. And in that first year, that's kind of when I started to dip my toe into trying to play jazz gigs, and it kind of all escalated from there. I started working with Glenn Kreitzer, who's got an awesome big band, and he really helped me expand my repertoire. And he's a sort of dude too that's very like he's kind of a Puritan when it comes to the way the music is written. Like if it's written in the 30s, it should be performed like it sounds like it's in the 30s. So I remember one of the things that was really helpful for me at the time was because I was just, if I heard a Billie Holiday version of a song and just listened to it, I'd be like, okay, that's the song, cool, got it. Like,
Yeah.
and wasn't really like respecting the history of the music, because I didn't know. I didn't go to school for it. And so he was so helpful because we'd sit down and he'd be like, all right, you've got these 15 songs on your list. I want you to work with my band, but we're going to need 50 songs on this list. So let's look at everything. And then I remember we'd go through, he had all the original sheet music and he'd be like, okay, sing Them Their Eyes. And I go, I fell in love with you. And he's like, that's wrong. That's wrong. Let's look up the sheet music. And then go, I fell in love, do, do, do. Like all the painstaking little notes, but it was exactly what I needed because from those few weeks working with him, it taught me how to properly learn songs on my own. And then from there, I had the skills needed. And that was at the beginning of this journey. And now I mean, I've been in the scene for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
wonderful. So in this journey that you've been on, what do you look forward to the most? I mean, you record, you perform, you're promoting, you do all these things, but what is it that you like the best about being a professional musician?
For me, I think it's kind of just getting to be out and having the adventures and experiences that come with performing and working as a musician, like at the end of the day, I would love if all of the music took off and was super, super successful and I got to tour all over the world. Like that's a dream. But and but for me, I think ever since I started doing what I do, I kind of had this like inner compass that was like, I'm not here to be famous. I'm here to make music the rest of my life. Like if I can make music the rest of my life and support myself on music the rest of my life, like as a job well done. And
Yeah.
anything else is just like frosting on the cake. So for me, this record is just such a beautiful snapshot of like that feeling of being like, wow, if I can feel like this, the way that I feel after making this record, like for the rest of my life, like that's the goal. Like that's ultimate happiness for me. And if I get some extra money, like that rocks too,
There you
you know,
go.
but
Yep.
like
I dig it. What would be a dream show for you if you could get into a time machine and go back into the annals of jazz and see one person live anywhere? Where are you going?
oh, I've got a good one just to watch, right? Just to sit back and watch.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
can meet them. You know, it could be an immersive experience.
Oh, even better. So my so I'd have to go. There was a battle of the bands back at the Savoy Ballroom back in the day. And it was Chick Webb and Ella Fitzgerald because Ella only worked with Chick Webb up until he died.
Yeah.
And then he was like, please go work with other people. So like she was singing with his band 7 nights a week, all new music at the Savoy Ballroom, right? So they wanted to kind of prove their stuff. So they did this battle of the bands at the Savoy Ballroom with Chick Webb and Ella and Benny Goodman and fresh-faced new singer Billie Holiday,
Yep.
because Billie Holiday had only been working with Benny Goodman for like a couple years at this time. And so of course like Ella and Chick Webb like wiped the floor with them. But apparently the ballroom was like stuffed, like sardines, like people were just trying to watch and dance. And I have to admit, like I would love to see that show because I wonder how many people were sitting there watching it and realizing that they were like witnessing history. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's Ella Fitzgerald and
Oh,
Chick Webb versus Benny Goodman and Billie Holiday. Are you
yeah.
kidding? Oh,
Doesn't even
it'd be insane.
sounds like it's made up for sure. Um,
Yeah.
you know, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but ultimately you live your life. You're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
It's a big question.
Right. It's this is the therapy part of it.
Yes, exactly. And it's on Zoom, just like my therapy sessions. Oh my gosh, amazing. How would I describe myself? Um, God, I don't know. I mean, the way that I'm definitely upbeat. Like I prefer to, even if I'm like, hmm, it's a hard question. Just how
Well,
would I describe myself? Or
I
just,
think it's more about your perception. So, like when you run into people, everyone sees
ah,
you in a role, you know, they always see you as
hmm,
this, like when you're on stage, they see you as the performer. That's who they know you as. Your family
yeah.
knows you from when you were born all the way to now. Friends know you whenever you met them, but ultimately, this whole timeline you've been in control of. So, what's your
Yeah.
perception, your idea of who you think you are projecting to the world?
Mm. Well, I definitely think especially the older I get, I'm turning into a nurturer. Like I always want to make sure that the people I'm working with feel comfortable and like feel, and it's the same with friends in my life. Like, is just taking care of people brings me a lot of like joy. Like seeing other people happy makes me happy. Um, but then that can also slide into the realm of somebody being like, "You're not my mom," you know? But no, I think that for me, I've had experiences in the past where I've felt stressed out or uncomfortable in a work situation, and I'm somebody with like like diagnosed anxiety, all this stuff. So it can be like debilitating, and being the only woman in the room most of the time certainly doesn't help. And so I know for me, like that feeling is no good. So the last thing I would ever want is for anybody that I care about or that I work with to feel those feelings, So I just try and make, I don't know, at the end, like music is the thing that I love. And I'm very lucky to get to do the thing that I love for a living. And then what happens if you become spiteful or pessimistic about work? And that work is the thing that you love. Like, what does that do? Does that mess with your relationship with music and all this stuff? And I've definitely felt that before. So I try to kind of like, at the end of the day, like, it's just music. You know, I had this one dude that I worked with one time tell me a story. He was talking about some guy that worked at a record label, and he was not picking up his phone, and finally the guy picked up and he's like, what is it? And this guy's like, we have an emergency, we have an absolute emergency, I can't believe you're not answering me. And he's like, what happened? Did the records get scratched? Like, nobody's dying, nobody's losing their life, it's music, you know, like we. And so I have to kind of remind myself of that, like it's that perfect balance of respecting the thing that you love, you know, and treating the people that help you make this thing that you love with respect, and making sure that even if there are like little annoyances like in the business, just like you have with any job, that it doesn't make you feel disconnected from that love of music that got you here to begin with.
Yeah.
And so I think that like by kind of offering, like, one of my favorite things is being like, oh, there's a problem, give it to me. Like, if there needs to be a bad guy, whatever, give it to me, or I'll chat with this person. Like, I've hired you for this gig. Like, I'm the leader. I'll take this responsibility, because at the end of the day, like, we're all just here to have a good time, you know? And so
Yeah, no, you did it. You nailed it. So Everybody Loves a Lover comes out in a few days. Is Bandcamp the best place to pick this up?
Yes, well, Bandcamp, you know, they're very good at supporting artists, and a lot of that money goes right back to us. But also, you know, you can, if you go onto the Turtle Bay website, they have CDs and vinyl for pre-order too, that you can get if you want a physical copy.
Excellent. Hannah, this has been great. Thank you so much for opening up about your life and music.
Yes,
and this project.
thank you
Best
for
of luck.
probing my brain.
Yes, indeed. And before